Well, the Indian agent is the connector between the Queen and the government of Canada. You know, that was the way the when the treaties were made, it was between the Queen of England, Queen Victoria, and the chiefs. And in that process, there was some kind of a thing built on that relationship. And the government put on what they call the Indian Act. It's an act about Indians only, you know. It's like having an act on the serfdom, you know, in Europe, how the serfs should act. It comes from that, you know, and we didn't know that's what it was till we found out we're in small reserves, and then you couldn't leave that reserve without a permit. You couldn't go to art school of your choice. Indian agent decides you go there, and they were powerful people. They had all the laws on their side. And the church was right in there with them. You know. They talked against each other by day, by night they're together, you know. And that's what we found. The two powers always were together all along. You know. And in the meantime, the land was being taken, you know. Little by little, we're losing the land. And I think what I paint about is to reinstate in our minds that we're the landlord. The landlord hasn't spoken yet, you know, about all this, whatever is going on, you know. And that's what I paint about. And, that's why I'll never be able to successfully be exhibited in National Gallery, because, you know, I paint about what's going on rather than doing art, you know, from New York or from Europe. It's about the people, it's about the land, it's about who we are. And I think I'm not only painting about the natives, it's about Canada, Canadians, you know. And I think it's time we really become who we are. Maybe it's time we're ready for that, you know. Right now you're still fighting with Joan of Arc days, you know, French against the English, or the English against the French. That carried on in the 11th century right up to 12th century to now, today. It's the two founding races, they say. That's ridiculous, you know. Neither one of us found anything. Just literally took it. And so I think they got to really rethink this thing. And the politicians are going to have to start really consider the native position. We're still the landlords, whether they like it or not, you know. And just because we don't say it every day and whisper it in their ears, doesn't mean that that's changed. You know, we still have that voice. We still are the people that belong to this land. The inhabitants of what do we call America. And just because Columbus got lost and landed on a shore doesn't mean that he discovered anything, you know. He just got lost. And he would have died, but the natives nursed him back to health. And he went back and reported that I found this wonderful land, rich with everything. And so that cultivated what became of America. The sudden change. I think right now they're only trying to save the French from being changed completely in Canada. And they're fighting like heck to stay that way. But we don't have all that mechanisms like they do, to fight back. So I think we will get run over, but if we do get run over, I think there's going to be a lot of other changes. We'll go down with physical change of Earth, I think, because we have connection with Earth, Mother Earth, we call it. And I think the animal world too, and the birds and so on, they haven't had anything to say about all this either, Suddenly, we invade their territory and think nothing of it, And they only think of the investors. And you don't know who they are, But somehow the investors are, because they threw a little money in there, they become the speakers on the changes, But they haven't asked the landlord anything yet. So one of these days the landlord's going to speak up. And if I paint about it, that's what I paint about. But the time when the speakers come could be my children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren. There'll be a need to be heard, Because this is, what's going on here is like I think Shakespeare would have made a beautiful play about what goes on. A lot of actors in this. And so I think, I don't know, that's what I paint about, not about acting, but about saying some truths about who I am and who we are. And I think if we ever really got down to it, we could discover we're pretty darn good people in a country called Canada, which literally means welcome in one of the native language. But the welcome no longer includes the people who welcomed people. So there's some imbalance there, Maybe we're people that need to really look at how lucky we are, We're a fortunate country, because there's good resources, and the landlord hasn't talked yet. I haven't scolded anybody yet. So I think even the politicians are going to have to straighten their thinking about natives, They still think we're subjugated, And we're not. We've just been hanging around, Yeah. And we're not going to go away, I don't think. Where could we go? If Canada wanted to get rid of us, what country would they send us to now? Where would we go?